I'm Claire. I'm president of the Webby Awards. I'm coming to you from our offices in New York City. Welcome. We are so excited to have you for our third Crafted Future event. Thanks for joining. So this event is part of a series that we have been running in partnership with WP Engine called Crafted with Code. And it highlights a curated list of amazing Webby Award winners and experiences each year. And tells the stories behind the build. So today we have a group of really smart folks that have won and been recognized in our Crafted program. And we're going to be talking about the future of advertising and the future of the agency. And I think that this topic is actually one of the most crucial topics that we have as an industry, because we're going to be talking about what the future of the agencies looks like, and there is so much for us to talk about, including how our industry is changing, how brands are changing, what people are expecting from brand experiences, and at the center of all of those things sits the agency, because they're the people who are translating new requirements and constantly augmenting to stay ahead. So I'm really pleased to introduce our panelists today. We've got a group of people from GSD&M, HAUS, TBWA, Chiat, and WP Engine. And so in the spirit of the open internet, I thought it might be really nice for everybody to introduce themselves today. So I'm going to hand it over to John to start and introduce himself.
Hey, good afternoon. I'm John Hickman. I'm a managing director at Chiat Los Angeles, part of the TBWA network. I oversee a portfolio of our brands, especially a lot in the sort of technology and enterprise space, but excited to talk about the future. It's something very much on our minds every day, and could not be a more critical time to be discussing it.
Thanks, John. Maria, how about you go next?
Hi, I'm Maria D'Amato. I lead the experience design discipline at GSD&M, which is a full-service advertising agency in Austin, Texas. You will have seen or experienced our work for clients like Capital One, Pizza Hut, Southwest Airlines, the United States Air Force and Space Force, among many others. We're right up the street from WP Engine, so I'm especially excited to be part of this presentation with them.
So since we're in Austin, maybe we should stay in Austin. And Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself next?
Absolutely. I'm Lisa Box. I head up our agency and strategic partnerships here at WP Engine. I've been working with our agency partners for about 6 years, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thanks, Lisa. Welcome. And Steve, how about you?
Yeah, I'm Steve Scavo. I'm a CTO at HAUS. We are a creative technology studio agency. And we are out of Los Angeles, and I'm happy to be here with you guys.
Welcome. Well, as I said, we have a lot to talk about. So, I've been thinking about this conversation for the last couple of weeks. And I think that actually right now we're in a moment that's maybe could be potentially, let's discuss, one of the most exciting times for digital and one of the most exciting times for you all and what you do. Because over the last few years, we've seen huge transformation in terms of technology, which has really started to impact the way that we live our lives. And if we look back to the history, or most recent history of digital and the technology transformation in digital, we saw a moment like this with the iPhone and mobile and the proliferation of applications on the mobile phone. A little bit further back, we saw it with platforms like WordPress enabling brands and people and organizations to move faster in terms of spinning up websites and providing content really, really easily. And now we're seeing it with an evolution of experiences, the metaverse, of course, Web3. So when you think about it, the people working in agencies all over the world are the people that take this technology and really envision what you can do with it. And then by experimenting and pushing the boundaries of technology, your teams are the people that are creating the future. So with that on your shoulders, I'm excited to discuss how you all are thinking about what your agency's teams look like and how you're planning to stay ahead. So I thought that we could start broad and talk about key areas where your agencies are kind of focusing at the moment, and what's coming up in the next few months. And John, I thought we could start with you. You're running a big agency. What are you working on and what are you focused on?
Well, I mean, I think you nailed it. I mean, we're at a critical moment. I don't think it's an overstatement to say we're at an inflection point where we're kind of, on this new horizon of Web3, of new ways of living, new ways of working, new ways of connecting, new ways of communicating, and I think the kind of cliche is true that the pandemic didn't change anything; it just accelerated it massively, and it brought the future forward. And so, here we all are. I'll tell you what I'm seeing from our standpoint at Chiat in Los Angeles, and a little bit of how I think about our role as an agency in kind of navigating this future. But what we see a lot right now is a fracturing of the communications technology landscape into a lot of nice, interesting niches. We've got kind of IRL work versus virtual work. We've got IRL relationships versus virtual relationships. IRL experiences, virtual experiences. We now have IRL currency and virtual currency, real goods, virtual goods. And so it's really interesting kind of fracturing of things into silos and rabbit holes and tangents, and all of which are really exciting to explore and go down. And should we do NFTs? Should we experiment in the metaverse? How do we orchestrate our own office to connect in meaningful ways in this time? And what I see the agency's role is, especially from our standpoint, is first and foremost an orchestrator of this moment. Brands today that are excellent at many things, and they're excellent at many things at once. They have excellent experiences across the entire spectrum, new, future, and past. And what you need, I really feel like clients are saying to us, is we need someone to partner with us as a thought partner, a marketing partner, a visioneering partner that not only helps us be good, but make it all work together. It's a synergistic nature of what brands do today that really is the magic. It's really the unlock. And if you look at the world's best brands, the most ambitious, aspirational ones, it's really their ability to make the pieces work well together that I think sets them apart from others who are sort of dabbling in interesting ways. So if you ask me, what do we see? We see a fracturing of technology and of our communication landscape, and a little bit of culture into more and more niches, which is exciting in the opportunity for our role to be an orchestrator and a unifier, and the kind of the force that for them stitches together almost a seamless experience. That's when you're doing it right, when it feels cohesive and seamless at scale. So I don't know that answered your question or not, but that's what I think is getting us excited right now and how we see our role moving forward.
Steve, I know House is quite a different agency to TBWA, so I thought it could be kind of interesting for you to answer the question next.
Yeah, it's definitely, we're starting broad, and we are a different agency. I'd say we work a little more inside out, in the sense that we want our work to feel big. We want our teams to feel very small. It doesn't mean we don't have many teams, because we've seen through the pandemic a tremendous growth. But we want to keep that boutique feel. We want to keep that personal relationship with our clients, and we want to keep extending into bigger, better, more impactful work. We want to keep our teams small. In other words, we want to keep our overhead and distractions really, really at a minimum for them. And I think our clients feel that when we kind of promote that continuity within our individual product and partner teams, it kind of leads to a good cadence and a good camaraderie amongst our internal teams, and that is actually good business for us with our clients. So that's how I think we maintain our best work in a broad sense. We can kind of withstand this barrage of how quick the tech is moving, looking 5, 10, 15 years out to Web3. It's still really fuzzy on what that tech is. There's a lot of TBD on the tech side, on those protocols. So we're just at the beginning stages of that. But I think in the short term, it's about our work feeling big, our teams feeling small. The other thing might be for us that we want to bridge the gap between design and development. This is more of an executional thing. again, to kind of propel some of these new technology advances. In my ideal world, there is no definitive line between design and development. At House, we consider everyone a creative. There's a different skill set and talent. And that's really important, I think, to maintain that sort of energy and motivation to keep building bigger and better things.
So what does that mean? That means lots of prototyping, kind of working really closely together to get things up and moving fast instead of a long time on design.
Yeah, I think traditionally we, again, going back to that designer developer and those mediums and those domains, the more we step into each other's domains, the better. I think specifically it's as a designer, you're thinking equal to the layout, you're thinking about the implementation. You're learning about how it's sort of built, how it's applied, dynamics, a bunch of different factors once it's implemented, and not just some visual static 2D design. And as a developer, we're thinking more around the storytelling, the intention of the design, what we're trying to achieve. And it's not just about the functional execution. That's critical. So now we're a lot closer to just being one team, just a team of creatives at different skill sets that are building one great project.
Sounds fun. Maria, I know you have just won some big clients and things are shifting as well at GSD&M. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We have been lucky enough to have onboarded a few new clients over the last couple of years. And we're doing that, of course, in this strange world of the Great Resignation. And because of those two things, have been bringing on people on a weekly basis. So we've really been focused on the agency experience and the employee experience, and really honing in on making sure that the people who are joining our organization are doing so in a way that's really efficient, but also bringing them in a way that doesn't sacrifice culture, the thing that's made GSD&M special for all of these years. So we're taking a look at ourselves a lot right now. We're evaluating our tools and our processes, making sure they're efficient for this world, but making sure they're efficient without sacrificing the community and camaraderie and collaboration that is really essential to having teams that function well.
Interesting. I have lots of questions on that I'm going to get to. Lisa, your team at WP Engine, remind me. Well, actually, I think I need you to introduce yourself properly. I'm sorry, Lisa. Introduce yourself, and then I've got lots of questions for you.
Yeah. So, and once again, I head up our global agencies and our partnerships, and so I work with the largest agencies all the way down to the freelancers that either serve brands or the large agencies. And so I get to see a lot of what's happening across many. We have 6,500 agency partners. I get to see what's happening across all of them, and I think that the interesting thing is, what was already communicated, the connective tissue between our virtual world and our real life world is now front and center for every single thing that I see happening within our agencies, whether it's the design, it's the platforms we use, it's the technology, it's the demands of the clients, it's all of it is having two sides to the same coin. And, we at WP Engine, we have our core values that we live by, and one's design matters. And I really think, to John and Steve's point, the design of how we approach our clients, our brands, and the technology, and then to Maria's point, the design of how we approach our employees to make all of that stuff happen is actually like the two top things we've seen in our agencies when we've surveyed them and things like that. Great resignation is real, so they need help with making sure they can staff for their growth. The demands of the clients become greater and greater and more technology in nature. The training that people need to make sure that they have the small scalable teams that are delivering for the client. So we kind of see all of those things at scale. And it's really interesting to hear from the panels because it's very validating of what we've been seeing, kind of on a grander scale. So
I like to think of WP Engine a little bit like the Webby Awards in that we get to have an amazing view of everything that's happening on the internet at the one time at the same moment, and you in your role get to see that even more than everybody else. I think 6,500 agencies is an unbelievable amount of agencies to be working with.
Well, I mean, it's a humbling experience, but you learn a lot. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and really have a great seat to see what's happening next as well.
Yeah, I think it's funny about that because it used to sort of be when I started this a couple years ago. It used to be that people were like, "We're just keeping up with the technology." Like a brand would come and say, "Well, they want a full omni-channel experience that has 20 connected points to my user that's all personalized," and people would be like, "Okay, we just have to keep up." And now that I'm seeing a shift to where we're actually leading that, right? We're staying ahead of the innovation and we're doing things in a much more natural way. And I think that whether it's headless or meta or even using NFTs within our digital experiences, like we're starting to stay ahead of the client's demands. And I see that as a shift, at least for the really innovative agencies that we work with. And I think that that's a really great thing because it helps us pave the way in what are they going to be the needs of the next generation of the Web 3.0. And instead of us reacting to it, we can create it.
Well, and that's a great place for us to move on to next because you are enabling incredible experiences. And one of the things that's become really clear at this very moment is that brands and their agency partners have to create great experiences for the audiences of today and their needs. So from brand strategy to customer experience, all the way through to user experience. John, can you speak a little bit to how your team at TBWA Chiat Day is focusing on creating great brand experiences with your clients?
Yeah, if you know much about TBWA, we use a disruption methodology, which is sort of a central kind of disruption idea, and it's what we've used for Apple and Gatorade over the years. And what we were really invested in is understanding how a single disruption idea can inspire and orchestrate the experience that falls underneath it. We're working with companies right now that really want to manifest experience in product, in the UI and the UX, a tangible thing in your hand. Brand experience can be something that actually activates, in real life, or it can be obviously the experience you have virtually, socially, or through the comms. And so what we look at really is this idea of disruption as an end-to-end proposition for a brand that makes the experience cohesive, makes the experience disruptive, and obviously serves the kind of business interests of the clients. So we look at experience really through the lens of disruption and look at the different channels and the ways to pay it off based on what we would call like a media arts methodology of understanding how the idea comes to life most powerfully. And that, if I'm being honest, I think that's really that last part was where we made the most progress in the last 2 or 3 years, understanding a lot of times the magic of an idea is in the implementation of it. It's the idea of the manifestation of how it comes to life and the understanding the touch points that modern consumers have. And so the more we can get ingrained into their life and their natural organic behavior, what do we say, meet them where they are, the more that disruption idea and the more the experience is meaningful and impactful for them. So that's just kind of how we approach it from a disruption lens.
Maria, I know you've been working on some big things at GSD&M. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the experiences that you've been creating?
Sure. One of our most recent ones is something we created for the United States Air Force, and it's an AR flying game called Command the Stack. We just launched it in December and are incredibly proud of this work. The stack refers to a term of where in altitude a plane or an aircraft is flying. So the top stack is about 60,000 feet. That's where you've got your B-52s, your E-3s, so surveillance and reconnaissance. Middle stack, your fighters. Lower stack, air-to-ground stuff. So what we did was take that concept. The Air Force briefed us with the idea of we need to create something to spark a passion for flight in the next generation of airmen. And we stumbled across this idea of the stack. We knew we wanted to work in augmented reality. We needed a platform that was accessible to a broad amount of people in this world, in a COVID environment. So we didn't think virtual reality was the right placement for this. But we also needed it to be immersive enough to create the kind of experience that would really give people that taste of what it's like to pilot one of these incredible aircrafts. These are the most advanced planes in the world. So augmented reality was the natural place for this game. And it took us probably a year to create this thing from start to finish. It was an incredible process of figuring out a narrative. It's a narrative-based game. There's 10 missions within it, and it's single and multiplayer. So figuring out all of those facets across both of those use cases was really challenging. It was probably the biggest challenge of this work. And then, the visual design and UX design and UI, all of that was happening simultaneously. It was a huge labor of love over the course of about a year. So most recent.
We'll send out, if you send us the link, we'll send it out to everybody to try as well.
Absolutely. It's available on the Apple Store and the Google Play Store, and you can go to commandthestack.com to see the website.
Command the Stack, there we go. We don't even need to send out the link. Steve, at HAUS, how's your team using technology to develop tools and marketing that are critical to clients' needs?
Yeah, there's so much to talk about on this front. Some of our Tillamook work that we were recognized for sort of is a good example of what I'm about to talk about. But we've had such a heavy focus on design systems, and it's not just a visual design system. This is when I talk about a design system, it really is like the components and blocks all the way at the end of the development road, what makes up a publishing engine on behalf of the brand or company that we're working with. This is a common UI library, it's a style guide, and it's those blocks and components. And this is so critically important that we apply this to all of our digital transformations. It's the sort of underbelly, it's the foundation of that work, promoting consistency and quality, tested components, accessible components, and really faster content delivery. These are all critical things for marketing teams. And on that end, the marketing teams and that infrastructure, that whole pillar at a brand has gotten so complex. And so we've really been on the hook to match that complexity. We're talking more with product teams, and they're wanting to opt into these design systems as well, which really brings up a new challenge for us, and that is creating a design system that's adoptable and can be incrementally adopted by other facets of a company. For example, the product team. This is really a worthy problem to solve in the sense that fragmentation really has big business ramifications. So there's often multiple front ends. Think about developer docs, a help desk, an e-commerce application, a marketing website. These are all different front ends that you can imagine we spend all this time and effort on the marketing side to create a design system. And it's important that can be easily applied and there's a single source of truth. So on the technical side, it's sort of matching how we think about content infrastructure and CMS and content. We've strived over the last few years to have a single source of truth. And now the new challenge is, what's that single source of truth for UI? We want to have both of those things in place. And now we're really making large strides in that efficiency, content delivery, and just the brand expression quality across the entire ecosystem on behalf of a brand. So how we do that is we're right at the finishing touches of that. It's some combination of mono repo with a built-in build system. It's frameworks that are familiar to us, all kind of powered by a centralized headless content infrastructure, or CMS.
I was just about to say that you would have been amazing on our headless conversation that we had in our last session.
What, a month too late or a couple weeks?
Lisa, why don't you speak a little bit about how you have also seen agencies shift their focus to build better experience as well, a little bit more on that.
Sure. So, I'm not a technologist, although I like to play one on TV. But we're definitely seeing a lot of what Steve was talking about in terms of setting up your development workflows, your standards, and everything, because a platform has to adapt to all the stages of any digital experience that you're building, whether it's the design, the build, the launch, the maintaining, or the growing of it. And what we're seeing is those are all getting more sophisticated. The tooling is getting more sophisticated. It's also getting simpler in some areas in terms of the complexity or breadth that's getting more narrow, but it's going deeper in terms of like the CI/CD workflows or anything that people are using. And the predominant theme we're seeing is, okay, now how is that fully integrated into all the other systems, sort of to what like the experience that Maria's building, or that John's teams are building, in terms of it's got to integrate into many different systems so that you can be on pane of glass, in hand, on your watch, all the way around, and connected with all the other technologies you're using. And I think that's really where headless is coming into play. We launched Atlas, which is WordPress headless. There are other tools out there that are also headless. And I think that that's really where we're seeing sort of the next wave going, because the connectedness of those platforms makes it easier than for some of these bigger, unique experiences. It's not for every use case. It is for very specific use cases. But for a lot of these larger brands and the dynamic demands that they have, that's what we're really seeing in terms of one of the innovative trends that we're seeing.
One of the conversations that we had in our pre-prep call was around if the agency is changing, then it's being spurred on by lots of different things. But one of the core reasons that the agency is changing is that the client is changing. And of course, the people are changing. So I think it's a really important part of the conversation. And I would love us just to discuss a little bit about how you're seeing client expectations change and how your clients are changing, how they work with you as well. And that is open, so anybody can jump in, or I'm happy to direct it around as well.
I've got a quick thought on this one, and it is interesting because a little bit of tenure, you have seen this change quite a bit. I think the legacy, at least creative marketing agencies like Chiat Day, were organizations that were pretty stable. P&G, CPG brands. You're talking about your consumer goods, food, auto, that had tenured marketers that really needed a little bit of like provocation from the outside. You got to shake things up. And a lot of our stock and trade for decades was, here's the crazy ones. We're going to come in, we're going to kind of jostle some things around and show you some different ways to bring your product, good, or service to market. I think there's been a sea change in the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years where the modern organization is multifaceted. You come to clients now that are doing 7, 8, 9 things at once. They got a performance marketing team and a social marketing team and a retail marketing team and a brand team and a design team and an internal content studio. And they're like, stop the madness. Who can kind of take all of this for us and really begin to integrate it, to orchestrate it? And I see a lot, even in our own building, classic CPG Chiat Day marketing was taking the seemingly mundane and making it feel extraordinary. This is Gatorade. It's not 32 ounces of sugar water. It's a catalyst of athletic achievement. It's your ticket to fame and success. I think a lot of what we're doing now is actually the opposite. Taking these incredibly multifaceted organizations with crazy multifaceted cloud AI-driven products and making them seem simple and accessible and understandable and in a sense singular. So I think from a client standpoint is really taking the sprawl of modern marketing, standardizing it, simplifying it, unifying it. From a communication standpoint, taking very complex things and making them simple. So I'm kind of beating a dead horse here on this kind of orchestration and unification, but I see that both on the client side organizationally and on the marketing side strategically, all roads leading to who can provide a seamless, simple, singular experience. And I think those brands and companies ultimately win. But that's from my, kind of creative agency standpoint. There's probably some really good other perspectives out there.
Maria, what do you think?
Yeah, from a creative perspective, a lot of our clients, and I'm seeing this shift across the board, have are developing their own in-house creative practices. Those are becoming really robust and rich in many organizations, and we're partnering with them in ways that maybe we wouldn't have in the past. So when you ask, how are clients changing, I think the skill sets and the disciplines that we're interacting with on a daily basis are changing. And when you're creating the kind of experiential and interactive work that myself and my team are focused on, you really need to partner with clients and bring them into the collaborative co-creation process so that you're getting all of the insights and the deep information that we then need to pass on to consumers in that simple manner, in a way that can be digested really thoughtfully and crafted really beautifully, which is our job. But we've really got to partner with them in order to get those things out. And it's a little bit more hand in hand than it's been in the past.
So does that mean working actually physically more together, or not during the pandemic, or just kind of communication is changing, the ways that you can communicate is closer together?
Definitely not physically, but it's finding subject matter experts within an organization that we can partner with, who really understand what we're trying to tell a consumer in a really deep way. The stack is one example where we partnered with an F-15 pilot to really understand every aspect of what that person's job was and make sure we were communicating that effectively, to gut check the mission writing that we were doing and making sure that that was accurate and interesting without being too specific. We needed it to tell the right story and strike the right tone. That's one example, but there are many others.
Steve, what are you seeing? How are your clients changing?
I think they're demanding that I don't even know if they're demanding is the right word, but we're much more embedded. The line's very blurry between their internal team and ours in a really positive way. We often field questions from various stakeholders at the company about questions that they have about their own company, and it's through us. So because we're so immersed with different facets of what they're doing. This happens at a lot of our partnerships, but it gives us some, I don't know, advantage isn't the right word. It just leads to better work because we have, in some strange way, a more holistic view of their internal initiatives than even some of their siloed departments do. And it's really exciting because we can, everything from code architectures to our creative work and our storytelling is just so connected to what they're doing that it's just, our work is getting better and better. And I think that these partnerships are getting tighter and tighter.
And Lisa, is this what you're seeing?
Yeah, so there's sort of like two sides to the coin. We work with the agencies and then the brands that they serve, but then we also can see patterns of the brand's clients. And when you look at the new generation that's coming up, like their expectations are a lot different than, maybe sort of some of the legacy brands that we know in the CPG and all of that, right? Like that Gen Z and now the new generation that's coming, the COVID, whatever they're going to name that generation, from this, it's kind of like what John was saying, like the simple, making the complicated simple is very important, but also making it very entertaining, because they want their information through entertaining ways, like hence TikTok and other things. But I think the other thing that they bring is the authentic demands that they have. That if it's not authentic, they want really no part of it, right? So how do we create these fully immersive, connected experiences that are authentic and simple? And what systems are we going to need to build to make those things happen? And so it's really interesting because the end consumer is what's really changing how the brand behaves, how the technology teams behave, how they work with the agencies, and how the agencies work with their technology partners. And it's like this whole chain that we get to kind of witness, like all of the different things. But I think it just means that our consumers are getting smart. They're getting very smart. We have adapted as a global society to, an accelerated virtual world faster than anyone could imagine. And we did it well. And that's pushed us to the boundaries of what can we also do next then. So I think that people are just getting smarter on a faster continuum.
So, talking about those smart people, one of the things that they are expecting is personalized experiences. And I know you all have been thinking about this a lot for the last few years. So, what areas are you focusing on and agencies focusing on to help provide those experiences? Lisa, why don't you kick it off? Because it's a great one for WP Engine.
Well, from a technology perspective, there are lots more demands of how adjacent technologies all work together. And I think we talked about headless frameworks and why those are becoming much more important to that story. But I think that the why behind it is because someone wants to be able to have an experience with the brands that connect to each other, right? If it's my clothing and my shoes and how I am an athlete and I want that connected to what I consume as food or what do I consume as my outlets. I want it all interconnected if I'm the consumer. And I think that that personalization coupled with what can we deliver, what does compliance say we can deliver, and how we use the information, and then how do we make that as simple and elegant as possible. And I think that that's the challenge that's not only brought to the agency, but also the technology providers that are supporting the agencies. And when I say it used to be, a couple of, many years ago, it's like, let's keep up with the technology. I think now the agency is really leading that. They're the ones that are like, this is what's possible, rather than saying, oh, I can solve that problem. They're actually bringing the solution before a brand is like even knows what they can do. And I think that that's the interesting shift of dynamic from technology innovative agencies or creative agencies or all of the ones we work with, that they can get out in front of that now, miles ahead rather than beat.
Yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, I was going to be real quick with this. I think personalization is ultimately about a value exchange, and I think that's the touchy bit of it, because there's the way in which we've used personalization to extract value from customers. We've targeted them, we've really optimized our feedback loops, and I think that's often what leads to a little bit of resentment around third-party cookies, kind of whatever surveillance economy kind of things. I think that the best brands use personalization to add value. I think Nike does a brilliant job of it with its personalized training apps. We did a partnership with Spotify and Bear Paints to create kind of a customized color and sound experience for people that was quite rewarding. And I think that's ultimately, Lisa, where you're spot on. I mean, I think meeting customers today where they are, but in a way that always adds value. Because if they know you're extracting value from them, they'll shut off. And they're very smart about that, and they do it very quickly.
Yeah, we're thinking about personalization in a couple of ways. One is content, and then one is platforms. And I promise we do work for other clients in the Air Force, but they're a really good example because they let us do a lot of things that are a little bit envelope pushing. But for their website, for example, we created a personalized experience there where the content that a user is presented with changes based on what they've interacted with on the website in the past. So we're thinking about what we're presenting to people in a moment and the journey that they're taking through the content that we're presenting to them. And then the other side of it that is interesting to me is maybe less about the more traditional understanding of personalization as it relates to advertising, but how an experience can become personal with the technology that we all have our hands on today. Augmented reality, I think, is inherently personal. You're playing a game in your living room or in your bedroom, in whatever space that you're in. So you are more connected to it than you would be if you were just interfacing through a desktop computer in the past. Same with virtual reality, of course. That feels more personal because you're more immersed. So we've been thinking about it from those perspectives as well, how technology can enhance the feeling of being personal without necessarily changing what the experience is.
Yeah, I was just going to add sort of similar notes on that personalization front. It depends on really what the consumer or user is, what their context is, their intention. Right? We know, like, if you're there and you're using some sort of utility or a game, that personalization is sort of inherent to the experience in the sense that you have an account typically, or the initiative is very clear. from a marketing perspective, above that, above authentication or that sort of purpose, it gets a little bit more fuzzy with all the new sort of privacy cookies. John was speaking to it. That's a little bit trickier. We still want some of that. I still think that from an advertising perspective, there's value in being exposed to and learning about things that you actually want and desire. So it's important that we still have some of that, but I think we're going to lean more on heuristics like machine learning and some of the other maybe single session based ways of deriving what someone's intention is, rather than cookies, obviously, since a lot of the third-party stuff is already being blocked. We're concerned about this from a growth automation standpoint, CRM standpoint, and having good communication with users through segmentation. So this is definitely something that's in motion right now.
Well, and it's funny because the new generation is more willing to give information if, like John said, it gives you value, where previous generations would not give you information at all, right? But as long as you're using it in reasonable ways and you're using it to solve their needs and providing value, then they're willing to do more. At least that's what our research showed, and I think that it's really interesting when you look at the different generations, who's willing to do more, and which client base is, moving more towards, yes, I understand it's a connected world and I've got to give to get, versus, no, I'm good. I don't want you telling me what I should have for coffee with my bagel this morning. I'm good with the coffee I've been having for 50 years, that kind of thing. So I think it's how you define value and how you define all of that. And we're seeing a shift. Well, and I have a feeling that after all of this, we're going to see another big shift. It's going to get a lot different, because people are just very used to having to trust the technology.
Well, talking about value, another area of value that we are all having to think about at the moment is how we value our teams, how we look after our teams. We obviously focus on how we recognize our teams at the Webby Awards. But I'd love to, everybody's navigating the great resignation. And I'd love to talk about all of your efforts in terms of building diverse and well-skilled teams and what's important to you all to keep your top talent for building the agencies of the future. Maria, do you want to kick it off? I know that you've been focusing on this a lot.
Yeah, I'd love to. We really have been focusing on the employee experience and making sure we're creating as good of one as possible. And it's something that we've been thinking about for quite some time. But the last 2 years have really crystallized the fact that ideas are certainly our currency and always will be, but people are our business. It's the people who make our great ideas, and we have to ensure they're set up for success and that they're set up in a way that they can focus on the work in front of them. Our worlds are crashing into one another in a way that they never have before. Our personal lives and our work lives have all come together, and it's a bit messy for many people. So we're trying to acknowledge that and create a flexible work environment that allows for people to have those things. But more specifically, an area of focus that we are looking at has been our onboarding experience. As I mentioned before, we've been onboarding a lot of people. We've had some wins in clients. We've got a lot of some turnover anyway. And we were lucky that we were already looking at this before COVID struck, and we had developed a website that is an onboarding experience for our employees. It's called Howdy because we're in Texas, and it's focused around the first few days of an employee's experience with the agency. The first day is day 0, so we share it with them before they even start with us, and it's a way for us and it's personalized for every single new employee. We give them information about the team that they're joining, the leadership of that team, who their coworkers are going to be, and we also really have worked to focus on our culture within that site as well. So it follows the employee along the first few days of their onboarding experience with the agency. And we've also looked at that in-person onboarding experience really deeply as well. So that's been an area that we've been really proud of how effective that's been. You often hear how clunky the onboarding experience is for people, and we've heard consistently from the folks who've joined us in the last couple of years that it's been the smoothest experience they've had. And for that to be true in a remote work environment is something we're quite proud of.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's very impressive. Steve, how about you? What are you all focused on in terms of building your teams?
We are definitely doers here. We're makers. All of our strategic thought, let alone our creative and technical thought, is all about what are we building and what are we doing, and what's in that purest of sense. And I find that creative people and creative thinkers have a special sort of spidey sense or sensitivity to environments that are not conducive to creative work. And so it's really, for us, it's about staying true to simply what we believe and not trying to do anything else. So we're staying grounded in the craft. And that by itself, I'm sensitive to it personally, that just attracts the right kind of people at HAUS. That's really above and beyond that, of course, there's baseline, there's skill sets that we demand technically. There's no doubt about that, but it's part of a job listing description. And all these things are things that I'm personally trying to get a sense of when I'm meeting people and I'm talking to people. They care about things. They care about as much about the output and the end result as they do about how we're doing the work, the execution of the work. So our toolings, our patterns, our code bases, our conversations, these are things that are critically important because these are the things that bind us together. And like I said, you just have a sense when you meet with someone. I think that's the best recruiting tool. Everything else is just paperwork at that point. So, yeah.
It is one of my favorite facts from the advertising industry that TBWA, the office, is the first open office that has ever existed. So it has been innovating in the culture of workplaces for a very long time. John, I know that culture is a big thing that you have been focused on recently. Why don't you tell us a bit about what you're focused on?
It's massive. It's massive. And man, I miss that office and I miss bringing my dog to work. Look, I say all the time, advertising is a high variance profession. The hard stuff can be really, really hard. But the fun stuff can be really, really fun. And I think really part of the tragedy of the last couple of years is that a lot of the hard stuff is still here, but a lot of the fun stuff is on pause. And so, so much of what we're doing is trying to find ways to I think your point was so well made. The joy of creativity is in the creativity itself. The joy of creativity is in the magic of bringing like-minded people together around a common purpose and with the kind of the alchemy and serendipity that comes along the way. And you lose a lot of that with the virtual meetings. And we're being safe, we're being responsible. We are probably not going to be back together in the office, in the next few weeks, hopefully maybe in the first quarter. But we're just trying to figure out, how do we recapture some of that, that virtually? How do we give people the safety and security to bring their creative selves to work, to feel safe, to take risks? Our little catchphrase is do the brave thing, but you can't do the brave thing if you don't feel safe, you don't feel secure. And so we're trying to give people that support too. And if I'm being honest, I think we're also acknowledging that the value exchange in our own agency is a bit off right now. Again, we kept a lot of the hard stuff. We haven't had much fun stuff. And so we're building in breaks. We did an extra week over the holidays to recharge. We're trying to build in little breathers. And, if I can put one plug in on that end, on that culture bit, it's that, I tell my people all the time, tapping out is not a sign of weakness for a day or a week. Pacing yourself is a sign of professional maturity. It's a sign that you know your own limits and you know how to get the best out of yourself over time, because we're in a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so giving people permission and the space to take a breather here, take a breather there, even if it's for a little bit of time, has been huge. And the last bit is, we're lucky at Chiat Day. We've got 50 years of culture. You come to Chiat, you kind of know what you're getting into. We have a camaraderie that has been able to persist even in this virtualized world. And I think that we do draw upon that. We do our Pirate Awards. we do our Chiat Day brave things, and we're trying to keep that flame alive as long as we can until we're all back together again in that really cool open plan office, and we can start having our dogs bark at each other and throwing again. That's how we're muddling through. I wish I had an amazing answer. I wish I had a textbook 3-step plan, but that's kind of, we're doing the best we can.
That's what happens in an era of transformation, isn't it? There's not one amazing answer. But there may be some questions, and I know our producer Emma will want to tell us about them. Emma, have we got any questions from the audience? Okay, good. And can the audience hear you, Emma, or they can't hear you? Oh, great. I love that.
Hey, just for what it's worth, my mom wanted to join, so the question's from my mom. You don't have to read that one.
I love that.
Please do, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Where am I seeing the questions, Emma? Are you going to say them to us, or? Okay. Okay, pull it up. Anybody else's mom in the audience?
No, but I just want to say hi, moms. Mine could be. She probably wouldn't tell me.
It's the glory of having family on the other side of the world, is that they can't join things like this.
Smart.
Okay. So what % of agency on record versus project-based work are agencies moving towards? Agencies of record.
Well, I don't know exactly the percentages for GSD&M, but I can say that, we haven't necessarily experienced the same shift towards project-based that we've heard about for the last few years. We still are substantially focused on AOR relationships and are often taking on additional projects outside of the scope of those initial relationships, and are growing relationships organically in that method and taking on projects in that manner, but aren't taking on tons of project-based clients ourselves.
We have this incredible balance of both, this insane dynamic where some 60-40, 40-60 at any given quarter. What's happening, though, is that our AOR clients, or even our partnerships, evergreen partnerships, they're demanding that it's project level focus and boutique, custom campaign-y, this sort of high level of storytelling. And that's sort of part of these infrastructure, their sort of core infrastructure and core partnership. So they're asking for both of our sweet spots here.
We're pretty heavily AOR, but we're going to need to get better at servicing projects efficiently. I mean, I think we all know it's going to go to a bit more of a mix moving forward, and they're fun sometimes. It's interesting to kind of dab. You'll have your mainstays, but it's also nice to dabble a little bit around the side.
Yeah, there's something nice about the team who is always focused on solving one brand's problems, thinking about something else for a minute, and then coming back to, their main client as well. I understand that. How do you keep clients comfortable during so much innovation and disruption? Sounds like that one's coming from a client to me.
Wine is always a good starting point. I would say it's that and just empathy. I mean, I really think that we pride ourselves as marketers of having a nice reservoir of empathy for consumers. I think the same applies to clients. They're going through as much kind of tumult and transformation as we are, and I think the ability to kind of see things from their chair inevitably helps. And that's been probably the easiest thing to be able to do, is just continue to remind ourselves of what they're up against.
Yeah, for us, it's a little, that empathy comes, and there's empathy, and there's also just good work independent of the scale of the project, and that establishes trust, and then they trust you to do bigger and more blown out, super disruptive, crazy things.
Yeah, I agree with both those points. It is kind of the benefit of having those longer term AOR relationships. It's you've built that trust over time. You've had success. You've shown how pushing the envelope and pushing into some place that feels a little uncomfortable can be successful for them in the past, and they'll let you do it again. And then keeping them close and walking hand in hand as we're exploring things that are even new for us.
Yeah, you've been on a journey together, and you're continuing to go on a journey together. We have lots of questions here, and I'm mindful of time. So any thoughts on the conversations happening between CTOs, CEOs, bus strat teams, or is that business stress? That's business strat teams, with Accentures of the world? It feels like different stakeholders, client side, are also having conversations in a business strategy, Emma has confirmed, in a silo that might already be in progress with IMC brand teams and agencies. That's a big one. Everybody can see these questions, can't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to take that one?
Look,
I'm trying to understand it.
Yeah, for Accentures of the world and Deloitte or whoever else it is, bring it on. And what I would say is, where we get into trouble, I think, as a creative agency, is trying to kind of out McKinsey or out Accenture. And then that's not our game, and that's not the way we're going to be successful. But what I think we can do is take a look at the massive amounts of data generated by the world's best consultancies and find the seams and the cracks and the insights that other folks might miss. We're ultimately a creative community. We're a creative agency. We're creative thinkers strategically and executionally. And what we can bring is a lens on things grounded in culture, but backed by data that others may not have gotten to. We can show them a way to look at this that maybe they haven't thought of before, and that's where we can add value in a non-commoditized way. So I say we always look at ourselves as an augmentation or a way to build on top of a consultancy relationship, not as a direct competitor to it.
Well, I'm mindful of time, and I wanted to do a final team moment together here. So I thought that it would be fun for us. The Webbies, of course, are known for their 5-word speech. I thought it would be fun for us to summarize what we think the agency of the future is in 5 words.
Discipline.
Yeah.
Agile, people-centric.
I love that. I wrote down working closer, making it simple.
It's a good one. I have innovative, diverse, personal, inclusive, and fun.
That's the one at the end, isn't it?
I would say creative instigators, orchestrators, and integrators.
I don't know. I think some of these are hyphenated, so I don't know. Embedded, post-account, executionally grounded, highly connected.
Amazing. I think that we've just written our email, sending for the video so that everybody can watch again. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating. This has been so much fun. I told you, Emma, that it would take much longer than half an hour. There's been so much to talk about. Quick plug for the Webby Awards. Our extended entry deadline is February 11th, and it's a great way to recognize your team and reward your team is to win a Webby Award. And you can enter at webbyawards.com. Thanks again to our participants and, of course, to WP Engine, who is our partner in all things crafted with code and what the future of the internet looks like. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.